Hey everyone, it's Argonath here from The Right Way, and I had finished up my videos for this evening, but I came across the story and I had to do another video about this. So this is in America. Gunman out of nowhere shoots 3 deputies outside Texas bar, killing one, Houston police say. You might be wondering, why is this such a story that I want to do a video on? Well, let's keep going and I'll tell you why I want to do a video on it in a minute. A Harris County Precinct 4 constable deputy was shot to death. 2 other constable deputies were wounded early Saturday in what authorities are calling an ambush at a North Houston nightclub. It happened around 2:15 a.m. in the 4400 block of the North Freeway near Cross Timbers at the 45 North Bar and Lounge. The deputies were working an extra job at the nightclub when they tried to respond to a disturbance outside that may have been a robbery, according to a Houston police, which is taking the lead in investigating what actually happened. Be advised, we have a suspicious person. There's a male knocking on doors at the hotel. A first responder can be heard saying in the rangecast audio. A struggle with one person was interrupted when someone else opened fire with a rifle from behind the deputies. So basically these deputies were trying to make an arrest on someone that might have been doing some robberies or something, and then someone from behind just started shooting at them with a rifle. They had no chance to try and defend themselves or anything. So remember, one of the deputies died. Among the injured, one deputy was shot in the back, another deputy was shot in the foot, and then it wasn't clear if the deputies were able to return fire. I left my 3rd deputy, who was deceased, here in the hospital, Herman said, outside the Memorial Herman Hospital hours after it happened. It's probably one of the hardest things I've ever done in my career. I'm asking for all our community's thoughts and prayers for their families. I'm getting to why it's an interesting story in a minute. Just bear with me. Let's carry on and get all the way down to the end. Houston police say that the person of interest who was taken into custody near the scene, but it wasn't clear if they were a witness or a suspect. What happened tonight was evil, and now the good is going to sweep in, and I hope for swift justice. I know that the Houston Police Department is going to do a very thorough investigation. My main concern is my injured deputies and their families. Authorities were searching for a Hispanic man in his early 20s wearing a white t-shirt and blue jeans, who is believed to have been the shooter. He was described as a heavy-set man with a beard. There was a heavy police presence in the area of the nightclub. Medics could be seen by witnesses tending to people who were injured. So the reason why this is an interesting story, and it's not mentioned in this story as well, the 3 police officers were all African American police officers, right? So African American police officers were killed, and I had to search really hard to actually find this particular article. You'd think it would be leading some of the main newspapers in the US. I know there's a lot of news going on, but you'd think they'd have some articles on it. Didn't come up in Google at all. It took me a while to actually find this particular article because I saw about the story on YouTube. And why is it that if 3 black police men were shot, nothing seems to happen about that, but if one black person who's likely to be a criminal gets shot because they're doing something stupid, then that turns into a massive protest and all that kind of stuff, right? So remember, BLM, Black Lives Matter, but not for police officers, obviously. It's only for other people like criminals that Black Lives Matter, right? So I'm here in New Zealand, and for anyone that's in New Zealand or people that aren't in New Zealand, when the Black Lives Matter protest happened in 2020, in New Zealand we had over 10,000 people protesting for Black Lives Matter during our COVID outbreak, when we were in level 2 restrictions, where you couldn't have more than about 50 people socially distanced in one particular area. So there were thousands of people out without masks on and stuff, broke all the regulations, but nothing was done because it was a Black Lives Matter protest, because of course you can't go against the woke left-wing narrative, right? But when it happens to police officers, nothing is ever said about these police officers. Where are all these BLM people out protesting against the deaths of these police officers, right? They were black, right? Do their lives not matter to the BLM people? They are absolute hypocrites, right? But people who are taken in by their hypocrisy just cannot see this at all. In New Zealand, I did a video of this a couple of videos ago. You can go back and look at it. There was a little boy who was tortured and killed by his father and the father's girlfriend, who was not his mother. He was horribly tortured and killed, He was a Maori child, so indigenous person, so not white, um, and there were no protests for this little boy going, hey, black or brown lives also matter as well, right? All these little kids that, you know why? It was because the people that tortured and killed him were Maori indigenous people as well. If it was a white person that killed this little Maori indigenous person kid, then you would have had all the BLM protesters out swinging their hypocrisy around, going BLM matters, Black Lives Matter, but because a Maori indigenous person killed a Maori indigenous child, that doesn't matter at all. There was an article in the local papers, but there was no outcry from anyone out there, especially from the Maori people themselves, because they don't give a shit about these people, right? They only give a shit about virtue signaling, and so on. Same with all the white liberal, lefty liberals in New Zealand. You're out there protesting for BLM, but when little Maori kids get killed by other Maori people, you don't say anything, you don't do any protest for these little kids, do you? They should just be ashamed of themselves, the white liberals in New Zealand. You're absolute hypocrites, and you should be out there protesting against these kind of things as well. You know, that's why this story brought to my attention, because BLM, as we know, is very racist, and it's totally against the police. So if anything happens to police, they don't care. But if it happens to someone else caused by the police, then of course we must have protests, we must have riots, we must destroy other people's property. Absolute hypocrisy from these sort of people. Don't get taken in by the BLM people movement. It's just, you know, the leader of the BLM, if you didn't know, bought 3 multi-million-dollar properties in the US based off all the funding they got through people, right? So they're not using the money to further BLM, which is a fallacy anyway, but they're pocketing the money into their own pockets. That's what they are doing. They're absolutely corrupt. Don't give them any of your money, and don't support them at all, right? Because they never support the poor Maori children that die every year from their Maori caregivers. Anyway, that's it for me. Actually, if it was white people killing white people, I would still be just as angry about it as well. It's not the fact that there's a Maori people. I'm tying it into the Maori people because they protest against BLM, Black Lives Matter, but obviously the lives of the Maori indigenous kids don't matter at all, because they don't go out and do any protest because of that, do they? You know, that's it for me. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you don't like the video, give it a thumbs down. If you have some comment to make about the BLM movement, either good or bad, please put them in the comment section. If you're Maori yourself, then do you agree with the fact that you should be protesting against the death of Maori kids and so on as well? Not just Maori, it could be any kids really, but we don't see any of that kind of thing happening. Then please put those in the comments, and hopefully I will catch you in the next video.